Just feeling resistance.
Yeah. Hi, it's Rita and Scott. We've been feeling resistance in the midst of feeling level and nice, and we're pretty neutral right now. But we had an idea of talking about when the predators turned on one another and when the cycle of fear no longer works. Maybe speaking that into existence. What do you see? Let's just say 2 years. We live in the future 2 years.
Yeah.
2022.
Yes, looking back on the time when the predators turned on each other. And it wasn't surprising to you and me, but it really surprised everyone else, including the predators. It just looked like the natural order of where things were going back in 2020. That there was such a bloodthirsty frenzy among the predators.
Oh, it was a fiasco.
Yeah. That the meager prey that all of us are wasn't even good enough for them anymore. And they started realizing, wow, this is working. What happens when 80% of them are dead and the other 20% are slaves? Who's going to be in charge then? It's going to be me. And they were all having these thoughts and these, this addictive desire for power and to, ultimate power of ruling everything. And it just made all the rest of the world just sort of step back out of it and watch in multiple, there were so many feelings to feel watching predators go after each other, because in that so many truths were exposed, because that's how they attacked was, well, he did this, and that thing you heard about, yep, that was her. So for us, it just felt like massive relief. And a lot of people got more fearful, and others were just so dumbfounded that all they could do was watch.
Yeah, when you've got so many predators turning on one another, even governmental ones, people in our various levels of corporate stratosphere and government stratosphere turning on one another, you actually see how our government starts not working the way it should work because of all that. So people had to there was another layer of now what do we do? They're not our whole, well, that was starting to happen in 2020. We saw that really quickly. Now our whole system is not supporting us the way that we've elected them to support us, and that just happens over and over and over. And even right now, it's still happening over and over and over. And we're here at the midterm elections, and now it's this frenzy as can be. People turning on one another, and then in some really good places, some really wonderful people are stepping up finally. But wow, I mean, we know who was on that Lolita Express now. We know about all the Jeffrey Epstein things now. We know now that Anthony didn't commit suicide.
Among so many others.
Among so many others, we know. And many people just sort of sit back and say, I wonder who's going to turn on who next. I wonder what else is going to be cleared next. And it's horrible to say, but this is one of the things that the broadcast networks or the cable networks, they get ratings for showing it. So it is kind of a backfire about the whole system. You know, everyone thought that the media was going to be in control and everything like that, but now they're like, wow, let's just air the chaos, which feeds them and feeds the chaos even more. And so, you know, 2 years from now, we'll see an implosion. It's just a total implosion that's on its way. Even we know that.
It's sort of the after cloud of the implosion that's happening, that happened 2 years after the first detonation, first impact.
Yep.
That was like the major destruction. And now it's just like this cloud, and that's all the power they have at this point. It's like they're still trying, because all of these top dogs were taken down. And so these middle management people are trying to replace them, as if the world is going to allow that at this point. And now it's just sort of, look at him.
Yeah. There's been more change of leadership in certain areas of the world in the last 2 years than we've seen in the last 10 years of global political leadership.
Yeah, because once they started turning on each other, then the, various countries around the world just sort of, were watching this and then went, wait a minute, what about our leaders? And just dismantled that whole system in their own countries.
We've seen that already. We've seen people resign and then their predecessors resign.
Right, instead of having the pitchforks come, well, you're right.
Yeah.
We're done.
And it's kind of like that Roman time where they had 4 emperors in 1 year. It's that whole thing coming back where it's, a little bit of turmoil and, it does. We have helped. Smaller communities have really helped each other. I'm really thankful for that. My small community is really, it's really been great. If you can garden, you garden. If you have a patio, we share food. If you can bake bread, we share bread.
Extraordinary and heart touching thing is watching cities come back to being human again and recognizing each other as humans, brothers and sisters, and also being helpful towards each other.
We're seeing a few little spots of like bigger cities actually starting to be neighborhood identities. And so we might talk about, like, say, like Cleveland, but the people in certain neighborhoods of Cleveland are learning how to organize themselves neighborhood by neighborhood. It's not necessarily
right
this interesting, crazy electoral, let's turn on one another. And so that's been really fun to see in some of our cities.
And it's just evolving, just naturally. And it's almost sort of like how you and I have been doing business for 4 years or more. Just what's next? Let's try it.
Yeah. It's something will snap. We know that there's a lot of us who are in the know that we've seen 2 years of like predation turning on each other, that it can't keep building like this. There is a snap that will happen. There's a catalyst, a snap, a large, I don't want to call it an event, but there will be some sort of event in the next year after we're talking about these 2 years of predation that, it's going to wake folks up. If you weren't awoke, you're like, oh, that's what was coming,
Mhm.
while I was just laughing at the television, wondering if there would be even more and more that I could consume of it. So that was another kind of like outgrowth of this predation. People were like watching it just like they would watch professional wrestling on television. It was almost that comedic and almost stage and just a real spectacle.
Mhm.
And there was a whole segment of our society that really turned that into a spectacle in just 2 years.
Mhm.
At least they were laughing, but it was a, you know, and it is a real spectacle.
Yeah, it was already professional wrestling. It's just that so many people were pretending it was real.
Yeah, yeah, and at least now it is. It's so now exposed. In the beginning, people couldn't believe it. They're like, "What? That can't be right. No, no, no. This isn't the America or the Syria or the Middle East that I know, and that can't be right." And now, at least after 2 years of this, people are like, "Well, had this for 2 years. This is the America we know right now."
Yeah.
So people are actually like experiencing reality.
Right.
Just a portion are watching it like a reality television show.
Mm-hmm.
So
And they couldn't help themselves, the predators. It just there was no stop. Nobody had to whistle blow anymore. They were just exposing themselves and not being able to have a cognitive understanding of the um, consequences they were creating for themselves because they were just in that addictive frenzy.
yeah, you
And so,
almost wanted to go on for 2 more years to see how. I mean, we were polarized. We were very polarized. We've always been polarized and divided, but I think that after this, no one is immune. I mean, left, right, center,
for the exposing.
the exposing, yeah, and the being exposed.
Mm-hmm.
It's no one is immune, and so um, the division tactics are really crumbling. They're eroding.
Well, it's kind of obvious where the division is now. That there is still sort of an us and them, but it's us, the masses, and the predators.
Yeah, and it's very obvious now.
Mm-hmm.
We see it sooner. And the predators are the ones who, like you say, the people who want to stand in line to kind of come up
Mm-hmm.
where there's been a vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that on so many levels now.
And people had to feel through their shock and their anger, the ones who weren't seeing it until they were exposing themselves and the truth was coming out, and the amount of grief and rage they had to. I mean, that's unfortunately it got people in the streets again and
Yeah.
collectively feeling the rage. But that's died down, fortunately, as as we could see that, oh yeah, now we are in it together as brothers and sisters to make things better.
Yeah. It's not a propagandized, we're in this together.
Mhm.
I mean, what would the media do if they said, "Oh, we're all watching this crazy show and we're in this together," and everyone would just laugh if
Yeah,
we heard that now.
right.
Watching this predation falling on itself, but we're in this together. It would just make us laugh, and that would, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. the things that really do bring us together now are um, under
Solution,
what?
solutions.
Yeah,
Hmm. Actual creative work and thinking.
and just innovation that's coming out from little places and
Oh my
not
goodness.
not being squashed finally because they're way too busy.
Right.
You know, a little town of 1,500 now built their own perpetual energy machines, and they're off the grid. They
Right.
have free energy. This little town of 1,500, the first one.
And all the platforms that were censoring truth, they realized that they were losing money after the predators started turning on each other
Yeah,
because they were squashing that, but nobody wanted to use their platforms if they couldn't find out what was really going on.
right, right. So these things will catch on. I mean, and the weird thing is that this town is like kind of remote, and none of the predator folks really want to take over it.
Yeah.
They feel like it doesn't have the resources that they want,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've kind of allowed it. But it's kind of become a model.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these are the neighborhoods that are very quietly organizing.
Yeah.
And nobody asked permission for them to like um, dig up a street and plant a garden, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's happening in smaller towns right now. But I think there's a courageous wave that will
Yeah.
happen in our more managed cities,
And so much relief.
yeah,
We can be courageous again. I forgot what that was like for most people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Courageous.
you live in a little town where this
Mm-hmm.
happened right near you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was shocking how uncourageous people were being because this place is sort of known for, especially for protecting its natural resources, water, especially.
Hmm.
And so there was another push to come for our water. But everybody was masked up and afraid to be close to each other. But that that extreme coming for the water again, that sort of slapped people out of their fear.
Hmm.
So it almost started, okay, well, a feeling of, okay, well, what are they gonna try to do next? Let's watch so we can see people be courageous again.
And then there are 12 people with shovels dug into the water lines, capped it off. 12 people with shovels and the know-how. That's all
Mm-hmm.
it took,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
And everyone was so busy they didn't notice
Mm-hmm.
until that deed was done.
Yeah, and the billionaire who wanted to capitalize on our water was distracted by trying to, take one of the next level places that was now vacant.
Yeah,
So
super.
all kinds of things like that everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And just smaller groups of organization happened in the midst of all of this too. Um, I mean, it's more than just community gardens. It was like a huge resistance that kind of came through. Like 12 guys with shovels.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. They may proclaim they have the rights to this water or want to buy it, but we know how to cap it off, saw it, bury it again.
And that was the difference. it was the feeling that was different, that changed everything. The feeling in individuals and collectively. It wasn't about resisting. It was about just doing what was self-responsible and correct.
Yeah.
And that feeling coming back to people is like, oh, I am not going to let this go again. I don't care what they have in store next. I'm keeping this sense of self that's my right.
Right. Mm. And in the midst of a lot of this, we forgot our children and the whole school thing. You know, we watched the spectacle, our kids watched the spectacle on television, and we were still off the trails of like, some people were still fearful after 2 years and like wanted to do distance learning still, or and we saw some community co-ops of schools cropping up again.
Mm-hmm.
One room schoolhouses, churches that were vacant,
Yeah.
turning into schools, people who were courageous,
Mm-hmm.
but not really even speaking about it unless they were discovered. You know, it was this little rumblings, and I like seeing these little rumblings that are underground while the emperor and his minions just play, and they play war with each other while we take care of ourselves.
Right. There it is.
Hmm.
And we spoke about this before it happened, but it couldn't be heard at the time, and we had done that enough to know that that's a good thing, really.
Well, it was just it was easy to release that. We knew
Mm-hmm.
it couldn't be heard when we spoke it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, but look at what was happening now. I mean, so what? To me, it's like, so what? So what if you didn't hear it 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Look at all the cool little things that are happening. There's a 1,500 person town with free energy.
Right. Not to mention internet.
Yeah,
Well, internet.
and 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 they're not going to mess with your water ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Not without meeting really good-hearted people who know the truth about where they are and who they are and the land.
Right.
And you know,
There's an awareness now that being bought isn't really such a great thing.
yeah. And there were still rumblings of that 2 years ago, and so that's why, of course, these things are. Oh yeah, wishful thinking, Rita and Scott.
Oh, sure. If you were offered $2 million, you'd sell
Yeah.
all the water.
Oh yeah. Oh, but it's I that's not a currency I need anymore.
Mm-hmm.
People's immediate belief, or it is just like it commodifies what we do,
Mm-hmm.
turn it into commodity that people can buy into and throw their dollars at and invest in Scott and Rita speaking things into being, so that the predators can like watch them and then they can calculate their next move. And I mean, we really didn't want that.
Mm-hmm. Right. We'd rather
So
just have the abundance of letting it be.
yeah, and then just see the evidence of this, the beauty that results. People did take a course. They did decide, And they did go through, just like dominoes falling, you just pick your path.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we're seeing the eventuality of these things playing out. And then like the fire, things burning away, we see like blooms of new things.
Yeah.
Because that's what we learn about ourselves as humans. I think, you know, what do we really do as humans? Do we fold our every bit of our love and truth or whatever things we have? Do we just fold and say I'm out? Some people do.
Mm-hmm.
Or do we say, wow, all those things that I thought I had to lose, I really, yeah, they're lost, they're gone, but here's what I've got. Here's who I am.
And that was lost before. And having it back is so much better.
Yeah. Oh, definitely the new definitions of people saying themselves. You hear at protests and marches more of people saying, I'm not just a protester, I am an eternal being who stands for love and truth. And I walk between worlds, I walk in the dream world. You hear this stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, predators, you may have another year or two left of turning on each other. Enjoy it.
Right. Good.
Good. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording here. So.